All right, we've got a pre-order already. He's attended to get that T-shirt started. I have empathy for the little shits.
Can I talk about that? Can I just Can I expand? So when I say I have empathy, I hate that we got burgled. I hate that I had my car broken into. It pisses me off to no end.
Yeah.
But like being angry doesn't serve me, and it's not going to, reverse what happened. What I would like to do is stop it happening to someone else because, it's a horrible feeling. When I say I have empathy for these kids, I was really lucky to have a parent at home for most of my young life. Like when we lived in Japan, my mum was a stay-at-home mum. So I had a mother present with me. She kept me engaged. We would read books. We'd jump into different
That's privilege, Carly. That's privilege. That's unacceptable. Your parents should have dumped you at a childcare centre from the time you were 6 months old. Otherwise, they were giving you an unfair advantage over all the other kids.
Well, I think this is why I'm such a well-rounded individual. But, I had the privilege of that. And these days, most parents can't afford to stay at home. And I empathize with that, not like, this is what I say. This is what I mean about talking in generalizations. Oh, parents don't want to parent. It's not that they don't want to parent. Most of them can't afford to. They're stuck in their 9 to 5. They've got to get up in the morning, race to drop their kids off at childcare, then jump into traffic for 2 hours to do the commute to their job, then go work in a thankless job for a boss that's like treats them like shit, then get back into traffic, then get home, get dinner, and somehow answer work emails and try and throw in family life. Like, again, I'm just painting a really simple picture. Life wasn't like that 20 years ago. There were ways that you could financially survive on one income for a period of time. So when I say empathize with these young kids, like I just pointed out a statistic. It came out today. I think the Australian put the article out about how most young parents, so think millennial parents, aren't reading to their kids. Why? Sure. I don't think it's malice. I don't think it's because they don't love their kids. I would attribute it to two things. One, they are so goddamn tired because life itself, cost of living,
100%.
All those things.
100%.
And then the other thing is, you've got kids who are they've got nowhere to channel their energy. So these kids are probably running around full of all these hormones and all this energy that they're not able to get out because kids can't even be fucking kids anymore. Like there's a lot of things coalescing into this.
Yeah. And we are definitely, we're treating kids like caged animals now. And then we wonder why they try and break out of the cage.
And we wonder why they have supposedly ADHD.
Well, I have some good news for you. If you were wondering after all that train talk whether our audience was just full of people with autism, I've got some good news. We've proved conclusively that they don't because they can't count. Duncan says press 1 for no reason and then goes to set the example and press 1. Straya didn't get the memo, got it mixed up, so he starts counting upwards. Unsound engineer just completely destroys the whole concept of whatever's going on. Now no one knows what to do and no one has posted on that topic since. So the good news is if they were actually autistic, if our audience was made up of autistic spectrum people, we would have already counted to infinity and we would know the precise number of pi down to the infinitieth decimal point. But we don't, so that's good.
That's great.
Just thought I'd share that with you. That seemed important to really bring out from our audience.
I'm glad we clarified that. I really do see this, and which is why I brought up before about a lack of willing to understand the other side of the argument. Like I got into this discussion before about, like I said, females leaning progressive left, and no one wants to ask why. Why would women lean progressive left? It's there's answers there. I'm not going to go through it now, and we can have this discussion if you want. But I find it really interesting how unwilling people are to accept that there might be a reason that person felt aligned with that. Not to say that they're right or wrong, but again, if you want to encourage people to open up their thinking and embrace common sense, you got to be willing to meet them where they are.
There is also some really deep fundamental psychological, emotional differences between men and women and what we want. And studies have been done on this. There's plenty of studies. This isn't sexist to say, as a cohort, men are more likely to accept more risk in return for the possibility of more reward. And as a cohort, women are less likely to do so. They're more likely to settle for what they have. They're a little bit more risk averse, and they're going to look at what they've got and say, well, I don't want to risk losing that. Whereas men will be more likely to take that risk. And that then translates into responding to two very different kind of promises from politicians. The "I will set you free to pursue your own destiny" promise as a cohort is going to appeal to more men than it does to women. There's plenty of exceptions across the board. Of course there are, but as a cohort it is. Why do women tend to vote progressive left? Well, I'm sorry, because their biology, their psychology dictates for many of them that they are going to find those promises of "we'll look after you" very appealing, much more so than the majority of their male counterparts. And so the argument could be made that once the franchise was extended to women, that a progression towards the left, at least relative to what had happened up to that point, was inevitable. I'm not suggesting that we should disenfranchise women, but I do think we need to have a genuine conversation about whether people who are not, or at least have not been, net taxpayers should be allowed to decide how money gets spent. Because ultimately what we're doing when we elect a government is we're saying we're going to pick you people, and you people are going to decide how much we get taxed and where that money gets spent and how it gets used. That's fundamentally one of the primary functions of government. And I would suggest that a really positive reform, impossible under the current climate, but a really positive reform, rather than lowering the age to 16 and having a whole bunch more hangers on with no clue how the world works, joining the ranks of voters. Let's actually restrict voting to people who either are in the current financial year or have been in their lives, or we set some parameters around it to say, unless you're a contributor, you don't get to say, unless you're putting money into the government treasury, you don't get a say in how that money gets spent. And at that point, you're going to see a very different voting block, and the incentives of politics will change radically in terms of the kinds of promises that gain votes.
I agree with you. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But I just wanted to comment on this from Hell's Bells. I'm a woman and I have no idea why some women vote progressive left. Well, this is what I'm saying. These are the conversations that we need to have, rather than going, oh, they're all lunatics and they're all imbeciles. I can tell you why, and it's feminism. And the reason that feminism has gone so far is because, you know, when we were around the suffrages and women couldn't get bank accounts and women had to have a man with them and all these sorts of things, like, feminism served its purpose, and it was great. It was great to see reforms and have women be able to vote and have women be able to open their own bank accounts and have financial independence. These were all great things. But like all pendulums, it swung too far, and now we have Clementine Ford. Now, this is something that I try and get people to understand. How does Andrew Tate exist? How does Clementine Ford exist? They're both two sides of the same coin. They are the fringe. They are the far example of these movements on either side. Well, Clementine Ford speaks to people who are feeling either unseen or disadvantaged. And I can tell you now, like, I'm not a feminist by any stretch. Do I appreciate the suffrage movement? Yeah. Do I like that I can have my own bank account? Yeah. Yeah, I do. But having said that, feminism also promised women that you could be a girl boss and that you could be a CEO and then have your kids and that you'll find a man. And so a lot of these women are now in the find out period of feminism. So I'm kind of speaking about this in generalized terms, but Topher, feel free to interrupt me or interject.
Yeah.
But feminism up until a certain point was great because of what it afforded us. But what has happened now, we're now in what they call it either third wave or fourth wave. I can't remember.
We're into the beginnings of fourth wave feminism, which is essentially actually the cancellation of women. Women don't exist anymore.
Correct, which is why, you know, the whole trans men or trans women in women's spaces, whatever. Yeah. But essentially what you've got now is, I'm going to say mostly millennials, like, again, generalizing, but millennial women who were brought up on the you can do anything, you can have it all, you can be a girl boss. But now millennial women who maybe are financially successful and able to stand on their own 2 feet are trying to find a man who is more successful than them, because they're not going to go, they're not going to date downwards. And so now what they're finding is there aren't that many men for them to choose from, because they've gone higher up the hierarchy. And as we all know, like with every hierarchy, there's less people at the top. So these women are now entering their late 30s, their 40s, and are unable to find a mate. And so now they're resentful of men because men can always date down. Men are okay to date a 20-year-old that doesn't have financial independence.
It doesn't even have to be someone way younger. It might be someone our age, but we don't feel the need for them to already be at our social status, whereas women do. But it actually gets so much darker than that for the women that are caught in this trap. And it's a lot of women. Once you become successful as a woman, and if you continue to insist on dating up, so he still has to earn more than you, then what you're actually doing is what you bring to the table is the thing that that man needs the least. A really financially successful man, the thing that is least valuable that you can bring to him is your own financial success. The thing that is most valuable that you can bring to him is being a really good homemaker and making a fabulous apple pie and being lots of fun in the sack. That's what you can bring to his life that he doesn't already have. If you're sitting there going, but I'm super successful, so I've already got that. I don't need that from you. And so these women are discovering not only is their dating pool incredibly small, it's filled with people that don't value the thing that they've worked all their life to be able to offer.
And that's why I was going to make my point of they're so invested in this feminism that they have no choice but to double down, which is why they lean harder into the progressive ideology, because now they're resentful. Now they're recognizing that there aren't the men that they thought there would be. They're getting too late to have children, and they're realizing that the money or the girl bossy stuff isn't quite fulfilling them. So
doesn't
now
keep them warm at night.
They have to project somewhere because, as we know, most people find it really difficult to cultivate self-awareness. So now you've got someone like Clementine Ford, for example, who's saying all men are shit and men are bastards, blah, 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 whatever Clementine Ford
whatever
says.
she's on about now,
And women are like, I don't need a man. I can have a baby on my own. I can do all this on my own. Oh, sure, you can, but you're not going to have a great time. And I actually sent Topher a photo. I won't do it here because I'm not about disparaging how people look. But I sent Topher a photo today and I was like, mate, if that's what progressive does to you, I don't want a bar of it because it's starting to show on her face. But for example, in the last US election.
Sorry. I had to, so much goes across my desk every single day. I'd actually forgotten, but yes, you're right. If that's what it does to you, then no.
Well, here you are again. Thank you so much for watching the Oddcast. You've just seen a clip from the wonderful Carly and myself. Am I wonderful? No, but Carly is. And between us, we make a good team. So head on over to the Oddcast HQ on YouTube and watch our full episodes over there. See you there.